We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Men's Water Polo Through the Decades. Tonight we have the decade of the 1990s. We've got a great group of alums joining head coach John McBride and one of our current players, Matt Blackwell. Matt is a senior attacker from Davis, California, and we really appreciate him being on the call tonight. I want to thank Geisinger for sponsoring this session. Geisinger has done a tremendous job throughout the entire pandemic, and as always, they do a great job with our student athletes day in and day out here at Bucknell. It's Todd Newcomb, and I want to get right to it and introduce our guests, and I'm going to turn over to Coach McBride. So our first guest from the class of 1993 is Chris Retzler. Chris was a three-year letter winner and the team captain in 1992. Our next guest from the class of 1991 is John Zeigler. John was a four-year letter winner and the team captain in both 1989 and 1990. He served as the head coach for the Bison men's polo team for 9 seasons and garnered 134 wins in doing so. And he led the women's program to 139 wins in 8 seasons as their head coach. Our next guest from the class of 1998 is Alex Lunding. Alex was a 3-year letter winner and team captain in both 1996 and 1997. He ranks 9th all-time at Bucknell with 210 career goals. He posted a career-high 11 goals against Richmond in 1997. He was an all-CWPA Southern Division first-team selection in both 1996 and 1997, and he won the Bison Club Award at the Athletic Department's Senior Awards Dinner. Our next guest from the class of 2000 is Josh Watts. He was a 4-year letter winner. He ranks 6th on the career shots chart with 405 shots during his career. His career high 13 goals against Washington and Jefferson in 1999 is one shy of the school's single game mark. He was an all-CWPA Southern Division first team selection in 1998. And our last guest from the class of 2001 is Kevin Permisohn. He was a 4-year letter winner and team captain in 1998, 1999, and 2000. He ranks 2nd all-time with 213 career assists and 10th all-time with 355 career points throughout his Bucknell career. He also ranks 3rd all-time with 235 steals, including swiping a school single season record of 101 in the year 2000. He was an all-CWPA Southern Division second team selection in 1997 and 1999, and he was an all-CWPA Southern Division first team selection in both 1998 and 2000. He was an honorable mention All-American in 1998. He was an ACWPC All-Academic selection in 2000, and he won the Robert A. Latour Service Award at the Athletic Department's Senior Awards Dinner. So, Coach, we have an outstanding group of alumni. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hey, guys. Thanks for being here tonight. Before we begin sharing the great memories of your time here at Bucknell, can you update us on your personal life? Where do you live, career, family, etc.? Chris, we'll start with you.
Great. Thank you for having me tonight. So currently I'm living in Greenwich, Connecticut. I've grown up here and spent about 25 years in New York City before moving out here a year ago. Currently work in asset management in finance.
Josh?
These days I'm living in Southern California in Redondo Beach with my wife and 2 kids and a new puppy, working as an attorney, doing a lot of personal injury litigation defense, and just trying to survive this pandemic.
Yeah. John?
Yes, I live currently in central Pennsylvania and I work at Bucknell University. I'm a recovering attorney, actually, so I am now back at Bucknell where I wanted to be all along, and I am fundraising. So I bother people with money like attorneys, like Josh, and try to help them to help the program and other things at Bucknell. And I have 3 lovely daughters and a lovely bride. I can't get any of my daughters to do anything aquatic, but other than that, life is good.
Alex?
Yeah, good evening. Good to see you all. So I live in Simsbury, Connecticut. I've got 3 girls, so full house. Also trying to survive the pandemic, Josh. They make it easier most days. And a couple of them are swimmers, which is nice. And I've found my way in the water lately, a little bit of masters swimming, which has been good. And stayed in the game, volunteer coaching at a nearby school that just started a program. And I bought a little teeny net and taught my middle child to egg beater. And she buried one in the upper corner bar down the other day and she broke it. And so I felt like that's an accomplishment right there. That's good. Update worthy for my Bucknell people. But I run a consulting shop, solo shop, have for about 10 years, doing organizational management consulting for social sector organizations. So a lot of Connecticut-based philanthropies, government agencies, and the like. But great to be here and good to see y'all.
How long before I start recruiting your daughter? How many years?
Yeah, I think you'd have better luck with my niece. I had to do this. So this is a La Marinda water polo shirt. I know, look at Matt. He's like, nah. There you go. I'm doing this for my niece, Matt. So that, if you can believe it, Jeremy Kish, who's a classmate of mine and a polo guy, he lives in the East Bay and he coaches my niece from time to time.
Okay.
So look out for her.
All right.
I'll work on the egg beater for my middle child, but us Connecticut folk, we're not really, born and bred water polo. It's not like football in Texas, like those Californians.
Don't sell yourself short.
All right, thanks.
Good polo in Connecticut. Kevin. You're on mute, Kevin.
I'm on mute. I'm on calls all day long, and I should know better by now. So I live in Pasadena, Maryland, which is just south of Baltimore, kind of halfway between Baltimore and Annapolis. I work for a transportation engineering firm, WSP, USA, and I am a regional traffic and ITS engineer responsible for kind of the Mid-Atlantic region for our practice. So I have a wife and 3 kids, which, as you guys know, I'm at the ball field right now with my oldest son, and I've got 2 other daughters under him. So they keep us very busy.
Absolutely. Awesome. Take us back to the beginning and tell us about your recruiting experience and how you ultimately chose to play polo at Bucknell. Chris?
So back in the late 80s, I was both a swimmer and a water polo player, and I had been looking around at schools. And when I got to Bucknell, the campus and the camaraderie of the team that I got to spend a night with at that point in time really solidified my interest in applying early to Bucknell. The coaches were great. The teammates were certainly very encouraging, and I felt at home. And it was the first campus of many that I had been to visit that I had really felt like this is where I was most comfortable. Early decision process went through, and I accepted happily and had a fantastic 4 years when I was there.
Awesome. Josh?
Coach Mike Wooster had come out to watch me play in California, and I think even before I went on my recruiting trip, I had Bucknell in mind as a place that I wanted to go. I mean, the brochure just looked like everything that I had ever anticipated a college on the East Coast to look like. And of course, I show up on my recruiting trip, and it's pouring down snow, and Coach Wooster was like, "Oh, this Southern California kid's never going to come here," but it was everything that I wanted. And, when I spent the weekend hanging out with Alex Lunding and Jeremy Kish, they tried their best to dissuade me from coming, but they showed me a good time. I came anyways, and it was all history from there.
Awesome. Zeigler?
Yeah, so I knew Bucknell really well from a young age because both my parents went to Bucknell. But they really didn't pressure me into it, but it was kind of, I think like Chris was saying, kind of a natural fit in the sense of both swimming and water polo, and where I was at level-wise. I knew that I was certainly not going to come in and, be some kind of superstar. In fact, I'd be fighting for time, but that I could also be contributor in both both of the programs, which I was very interested in. So just happened to be just a great fit. I also went early decision. I'll never forget in high school when I first expressed to my coach at my high school that I was interested in Bucknell. This was the head swimming coach. She picked up the phone and dialed a number, and while I'm standing right there, and got Coach Russell on the phone, like right there and then, and like had me get on the phone. I completely freaking out, but it's things like that, opportunities like that helped. And kind of like others have said, it's just a fantastic fit and a great experience. And here I am back at Bucknell again. So never have really left.
Always waiting for that new pool, huh? That Russell promised you?
Absolutely. Got to coach in it though.
There you go. Alex.
Yeah, well, you took it was the pool joke from me.
Mm-hmm. I was doing it too.
Yeah, if you talk to any 90s player, that's going to be like, yeah. So we have to voice that if we're the voice of the 90s here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Turned out the pool was a good thing. We'll get to some memorable moments later. So I came to Bucknell for the first time as an 8th grader, dropping my sister off. And I had a similar experience to Josh, although in this case it was the fall and it was gorgeous and it was live and not the brochure. And I just took a step on the campus and was like, it's over. I mean, this is where I want to go. I literally got in the car with my mom and like sketched out on a napkin the rest of my life, and it included Bucknell as the chapter after high school. So I had to get the grades and play enough polo and be fast enough to figure that out. Thankfully, it figured itself out. I recall getting the call from Coach right around spring break, giving me an update on my status, and it's just a very vivid memory to me to know that I was going to have the 4 years ahead of me that I dreamed of as an 8th grader. And I didn't chase the black line in Bucknell. I couldn't swim anymore, but I was very thankful to play polo, and very thankful for the community and family that Chris was referring to. It's a promise delivered for me and one that I still lean on. So 8th grade, they had me at hello.
Amazing. Kevin.
Yeah, it was definitely the pool for me too. Mike Wooster sold that. Oh man, he sure had the speech prepared that this pool was coming and it'll be some grand thing. So when that didn't happen, obviously, it was the full picture. I mean, Bucknell, it was that happy medium of everything I was looking for. I kind of figured I'd wanted to go into engineering. Obviously, great engineering school there. D1 polo, wanted to stay on the East Coast. Not too far from home. It was, it just kind of checked all the boxes. The recruiting trip, very memorable. I'll have to say I was also went early and accepted. So, couldn't have been happier with my choice there. So, yep.
So no one has any crazy recruiting stories, huh? Like your official visit story? We want to share.
Not on a recorded line, especially since I think I hosted 2 of those, so I'm not sure we want to get into that today.
No, there's no PG-13 version. No, all right. So I'm going to introduce you to a senior on our team, Matt Blackwell. He's an engineering student. Kevin, he's engineer and super busy. If his head's not in the pool, it's in the books. And he's a center defender for us, played at Davis in California. We love having him. He just always seems to catch an elbow to the side of the head for some reason. So he's a magnet for elbows. But Matt's got a couple questions for you guys, so I'll let him go ahead.
Hey guys. So my question is, what advice would you give me or any of the other players that are in our program today about the college water polo experience at Bucknell?
Go ahead, Chris.
Great. I just spent the last 8 years on the Bucknell Alumni Association, and it really expanded my thought as to what it is that I should have been doing on campus for 4 years and what I didn't probably do as well. So the advice I'd give you is to expand your relationships, build those relationships across the whole campus. I mean, it's very easy to remain within the tight-knit family of the aquatics area, which is fantastic and certainly developed some of my closest friends still to this day. but don't lose sight of all the other participants within the campus, because there's such a dynamic environment there on campus that you should be taking advantage of. And something in business that we spend a lot of time with is the word relationships. So build them out, always be building them, and take advantage of everything that Bucknell can offer, because there's so much there within the pool and outside of the pool. So that would be my advice from my experience. And, you know, I've tried to come back at least 3 times a year, and it's really been a fantastic way to see the university grow.
Awesome. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo a lot of what Chris just said. I mean, I think it's important to get outside the aquatics realm. I mean, I made a lot of great friends in the aquatics program, both in the swimming program and the water polo program. You know, joined a fraternity that a lot of the water polo players were part of. But it probably would have benefited me to sort of expand and join other groups and join other programs and just kind of get out there more. But I have kept in touch with a lot of my polo players, friends, and still do, you know, to this day. And they're great relationships, and just fostering those relationships. But also remember that I think that, you know, another piece of advice I would give is that, you know, water polo is great. It's fun. It's one of the best experiences of my life. But to remember too that you're there for college, and there's other aspects of college besides only playing polo, and to make sure you go out and experience those aspects and just have a great time in college and enjoy yourself and get a good education and focus on all aspects of everything.
Ziggy?
Yeah, so I probably have a little different thought and process in mind, more specific to kind of your experience on campus. And I think I'm sorry, on the team, on the program. And I think it's something along the lines of, like, don't leave anything behind. Like, don't take it for granted, because it's such a short window of time. And put, you know, when you leave, I think what you want to remember is that you tried everything you could to better yourself and better for the team's benefit. So you went for it. I think what you would hate to be able to remember is, well, I didn't make any mistakes, so I didn't get embarrassed any time, or something like that. Because I think it's when a combination of all the team members feel that way and do that for each other, then you can feel at the end of the day we gave everything we had to the program, and you get the benefit. You get what you wanted to get out of it without ever really having to do so, because you're just all on that same page. The other thing I would say with that is that I think too many people look at it as I did my 4 years and now I'm done, you know, and they kind of walk away from it. And I think there's just so much to be said for keeping those ties back to the program, like for when you're gone and for the future, you know, and keep them playing if you can. It's the kind of sport you can keep playing, but also that you can kind of keep in touch with the program, come back, or just interact with the program in ways that benefits those current players, you know, to hear what alumni are doing. And the last thing I would say is, I don't know if they still do this, but if you get a watch or a ring, they still do that, right, Todd?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So if you get a ring like I did, order it just a little bit too big. I don't know how, but somehow it shrunk. So I had to go get it resized, and they tend to shrink for some reason. So I'll get a little big, and then, you know, just in case something happens down the road.
It's great advice, John. Alex?
Those are supposed to be pinky rings, right, John?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
No problem. That's kind of misdirected advice, Matt. I'm not sure about that one, but yeah, actually, I stayed in the pool too on this one, and when I thought about it, and I would say that just intensity goes a long way. I mean, if you're in the Bucknell program, you're talented, and so are the people around you in and out of the pool. But in the pool, when I think about the most successful players, the ones I admired, the ones who got the most out of it, they just brought it. Every practice, every game. And I know that's a bit cliche, but it's the common denominator for success in the water as a team and then the individuals. And then the second thing I'd say is really, and again, it dovetails off John nicely. If I have a regret, I think it's that I feel like I could have done more to lift up the skill and capability of the people around me. And Josh and Kevin can disagree. They were my teammates, but I feel like, Josh can't do it on this call, but his wingspan will not fit in the Zoom box. I mean, it is huge, man. And and he learned to get his arm out. It took a while, but once he got it out, no one was getting that ball. But it's stuff like that, like the freshmen coming in, every player, the minute they're in the program, it's about elevating everybody and not just yourself. And I'm not saying that I was around people that focused on themselves, but when we were at our best, it's when we were sharing our talents with each other and we were doing it with intensity. Always. But Josh did figure out how to get his arm out, and he scored 2 more goals than I did in a game. And I didn't miss that, Todd, in the update at the beginning, because he watched me do it when he was a sophomore, and then he had to go score 2 extra goals. So don't hold grudges, Matt. Tell other players.
Kevin, any advice?
It's crazy how much I apply kind of being on a team, being with, a group of individuals that are, working together towards a common goal. It applies so much into the real world in my business. I would say, just like John said, be present in everything you do. Make the most of that situation. You want to be critical of your performance, but don't be your worst critic too. So many times I'd get down on myself and hold myself to these standards that were just ridiculous. And it wasn't fair. I never allowed myself to feel that success that maybe others around were trying to point out, but I didn't feel it for myself. I was very hard on myself. Really apply those lessons learned of, everything, like I said, being part of the team, to every aspect of your life. Be a leader, but also learn to follow, learn to work with others, learn to compromise, depend on others to achieve success. We can't, no matter what you choose to do in your profession, especially engineering, day in, day out, you're working with other people, other disciplines. You really need to respect others, their opinions. And I'll tell you, there's not a day that goes by that I don't use like a water polo or sports, euphemism when I do. I do have some direct reports now, but I look at myself as their team captain. That's just the way we work. I'm in the pool with them. We have one common goal, and that's just how it is. So just do whatever you can to be present in those situations and make the most of it.
Awesome. Matt, you got another question?
Yeah. What advice do you have about networking and finding the right job after Bucknell?
All right, Chris.
Great question, because we recruit a lot of Bucknell students. Thankfully, I work for a Bucknell alumni class of 65. So I've learned very well about the value of supporting graduates of Bucknell and how great they are as workers. They really do stand out in the workforce. What advice I would give to a student who's coming out from a networking is also resume building advice, that you really want to start that, kind of day one when you're there, and build out as diverse a resume as you can. Have multiple different experiences. Certainly your time commitment in the water is significant. But if you can find certain areas that, again, expands your experience outside of the pool, it helps you build those, again, relationships, and that's part of networking. I also would not be fearful of ever reaching out to Bucknell alumni, and you might not get the job from that first phone call, but what you want to do is leave that phone call and say, is there someone else I can call? Is there someone you can put me in touch with, right? That they may have an opportunity or they may have another idea. And you move along that networking web, right? And ultimately, you probably will find some people that might really need your skills or have opportunities that you run into. But don't let the first kind of door that shuts on you, get you down. take that as an opportunity and never leave that meeting without saying, hey, if it's not you, is there someone you can put me in touch with? And that's how you keep the conversation rolling along. So that would be my advice to you.
Awesome. Josh.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the best person to give advice on this. My postgraduate activities in finding a job were kind of more based on luck than anything else. But the one thing that I would say would be persistence, and remembering that, in reaching out to Bucknell grads, which I definitely would suggest doing, and I've been reached out to as an alumni by, people graduating from Bucknell, is to stick with it. And, as an attorney or anybody else working, just a crazy job, sometimes I can't respond to alumni or people as soon as I would prefer to. And it helps me as somebody that's being contacted to really have that person that's looking for a job, looking for an opportunity, to really be persistent, to follow through, to not give up, and to not put the onus or the responsibility on me to kind of do everything, but really you take that effort and make it as easy as possible for me to help you out. And I want to, and I think a lot of alumni do want to do that. But yeah, with me, it was all luck. And I mean, you never know when you're going to find the right opportunity. I got a job beating a guy at darts in a bar after, I graduated, or, just like randomly getting a .com job, or, working at a pizza place before I decided to become a lawyer. Like all these things, you never know where opportunities are going to, come about. So don't be afraid to just try new things and keep at it.
Awesome. Zeigler.
Yeah, I think my main advice would be that you don't underestimate the power of the Bucknell network. I've always heard that, and I remember as a young alum, hearing that, but not really understanding it. And then it's now really in this role where I'm out meeting with alumni, connecting alumni back to the university in various capacities, that I really see the power of the Bucknell network. And there's something about being a graduate from Bucknell where a lot of times in various areas of the country, you go out, people go, what's Bucknell? They've heard of it more than probably back in the 90s, but still it has that kind of thing where I think we as Bucknellians walk around with a little bit of a chip on our shoulder about what a Bucknell degree is and the time we had there and what it meant. The Bucknellians that are out there very much want to connect with current Bucknellians and young alumni, try to assist and try to help in any way they can, whether that's helping them directly or even connecting them to the next another contact. So don't underestimate that. And I think the important point that I think was mentioned by Josh there was be persistent about it, because you may feel you're irritating somebody, but when I'm trying to connect with Bucknellians out there, a lot of times it takes several tries, because they're very successful, very busy, very successful people who are very connected back to Bucknell, but can't always do it right away. So I echo that, and being persistent and being the one who's initiating that contact.
Alex?
Well, Chris stole one of my nuggets on networking, which is that second question piece, and always ending with the where are you going next on the web? And it is such a rich web of Bucknellians, which has also been referenced. I guess this isn't going to answer a question about networking necessarily, but it does kind of reveal a little bit of what kind of career you're looking for. And I think, to me, something that became evident is that it was more important to me. I mean, if you're an engineer and you've trained to be an engineer and that's what you want to be when you grow up, then be an engineer. But when you go look for an engineering gig, make sure that it's about the substance of the work, and it's about the culture and the relationships and the managers and the people in the place. Because that's what's going to make your job a job you love and stay with, or one that drags you down. And for me, I've just always tried to find places, and Bucknell was this place for me as a very young man. Try to find places where I can be surrounded by people who let me be me, where I can be me. And so at work, I've designed a life now where I can be the same person at my job that I am in my home, that I am on this call, And that consistency, where your job is not a place where you're something different, but it is where you are yourself. And maybe your best coach, to Kevin's point earlier, your best version of the athlete that you are, that's the spot you want to end up in from a career perspective. And feel lucky that I found that. And I think part of finding that was having the experience being in an environment where I was able to do that, able to be myself. And Bucknell was one of those certainly formative early places.
Awesome. Kevin.
Yeah, so my experience in kind of the job world is probably pretty few and far between these days. If you look at it, I actually found my job through a Bucknell alum. So that's pretty much the same, at least got my foot in the door with an interview. But I've been at the same firm for almost 20 years now. So the same job I had right out of school. Yeah, amazing, right? So I'm so happy with it. Certainly there's been times where you think about going somewhere else, but it's definitely been an amazing experience. But to Alex's point there, it is about feeling that comfort level. My advice, not necessarily networking, but that interview process, the things you need to do is, it's got to be a two-way interview. Yes, they have you in the door. Yes, they're, trying to figure out if you're a right fit for them, but you need to make sure that they're going to be a right fit for you as well. Without really asking them the question. So come in prepared, put them on the spot. How are they going to treat you? What kind of career path do you have in that company? Ask them, talk over and maybe in, shoes as well. When you get to that point of accepting an offer or making a decision, don't let $1,000, $2,000 make your decision. Oh, these other people are offering me $2,000 more, I'm going to go there. That's nothing in the grand scheme of it. Definitely. I would say other things to do to prepare yourself is get an internship. In the engineering, we really look at resumes that have quality experience, and that quality experience is coming from internships, not just between junior and senior year, but even starting back after freshman year. So get as much experience as you can. If you're not sure what you want to do, that's what the internships can help.
Kevin, looks like we lost you there for a second. You still there? All right, we'll piggyback.
Frozen in thought.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I lose my connection?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what
internships. No, we're still losing you.
Internships are highly valuable. Shoot.
There we
you guys
go.
Hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Get an internship experience. That's all for me.
Okay. Piggybacking off that a little bit, have you guys done any networking? I mean, water polo is such a small community. With any other water polo players from other teams, or how important is it, even though they may have been enemies in the pool, to network with people within the sport? I mean, we can kind of open it up to if you've had any experiences like that. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of relates to what John was saying about continuing to play. I spent like 10 years in New York City after graduating and ended up playing in a lot of enemy pools, man. I mean, I would, anywhere someone would take me, I would go. So I was in Queens's pool, St. Francis. They're terrible pools. They're worse than what we all got convinced to go play in. But in those experiences, and then eventually settling into kind of a master's program and playing for years there and bumping around into lots of Bucknellians, tournaments and stuff, it just opened my eyes to the water polo community. I mean, I can count, 2 or 3 examples of relationships I built on some of those, patched together squads for weekends playing Zeigler's teams in Villanova. And those people are in my network now. I rely on them for information about my sector. I started a partnership with, on a project for a couple of years with someone from that type of connection. So the pool and the web there is certainly rich, particularly if you can get past the "we used to be combatants" part. And you know, I have to say though, Matt, I know you take elbows to the head. I got a knee to the head, ruptured my eardrum. Yeah, that was a good one. And it was a guy from Navy who I actually ended up playing on a team with 5 years later. So he let me knee him in the head, and it was all squared up. And then we went on. We had very
face in the water.
Yeah, very rich networking after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. What's your most memorable experience as a part of the Bucknell Polo program, Chris?
I put a lot of thought into this, and you know, when I think back to it, it was looking up at the stands when we were in games and the amount of alumni that had returned to watch the games, the support of the guys from the 1970s and 80s, the sharing of experience in the pool, encouragement, and the excitement that they had watching the games. And I don't think I truly appreciated it until I became an alumni, and you weren't the person in the pool. You had your 4 years, and it was over. And so really the only way you're reliving it is by going back and sharing and supporting the current players and the current team. But, you know, the 4 years, as someone mentioned earlier, goes really quickly. And, you know, when I look up to the old pool that we all remember, the stands were a lot closer to the pool deck than they are now. So you really felt this closeness of the crowd in the pool with you almost. And I think that was the real value of that old pool, which, you know, I remember. And again, the amount of alumni that came back was really a special thing for our team in those days.
That's a big, it seems to be a reoccurring theme is the fans in the pool, everything was so close that couldn't even hear the whistles at some point. So, Josh.
Yeah, I've thought about this a little bit too. I mean, there's a few things that pop into my head, and one of it was coming from the West Coast. One of the biggest memories that I have over the entire 4 years was just traveling with the team and going to all the different schools on the East Coast, and, you know, jumping in a van with, like, you know, 6 or 7 other polo players that are just, you know, on a 4-hour drive to wherever on the East Coast. I mean, there's a lot of good times in those trips, and really showed me the entire East Coast and a lot of new areas for me, which that was just great. And two other moments that just sort of stand out in my career. One was, you know, it was a home game. It was one of those times where we were in the small pool, and we if you want to call it, marketed the game up at the dining hall and made sure everybody showed up, and the stands were packed. And, you know, I had like a last second shot at like the halftime mark that went in from like half court, and the place went nuts. And, you know, I think we lost the game eventually, but I hold on to that 5 seconds of like just craziness that the stands went into when I hit that shot. And that was just so wonderful. And then the final moment that stands out in my career was the very last game I played. You know, it was at Princeton. It was at Southern Championships, and we got knocked out in the first game of those championships, so we didn't go to Easterns that year. And, you know, having that knowledge it just kind of devastated me. And I remember, you know, after the last game, I was just heartbroken that there wasn't going to be any more Bucknell water polo, and it was a sad moment. But overall, you know, a great time and a great career.
Oh, Ziggy.
Yeah, so for me, I think it was the whole preseason process. You know, it was that anticipation and nervousness coming into a preseason, knowing, you know, what that was going to entail as far as like level of work, the level of pain, then being in that process, obviously not at times, but then that feeling of kind of knowing what you've done collectively at the end of a preseason, and then that anticipation for the next step. I really liked that process. It was also a big part of why I liked coaching too, just because it was so critical, I think, to the team's bonding, the team's success, the team's development. And so for me, those were times that I clearly remember. I also remember making the travel squad my freshman year, which I didn't think I was going to make. And it probably was a really bad thing because I don't really think I played much of anything, but I made the travel squad. I think that year we went to California, and we also went to like Fort Lauderdale. We were gone all the time, up at Brown a couple times. And I think I did pretty horribly academically as a result, but I was just so happy to be there and just be riding along with, this group of people that I was just enamored with. So for me, that was a big happy moment.
Awesome. Alex.
Yeah, so I couldn't pick one, so you guys will stick with me here, because I got thud, pop, smooth, laughs, and I'll walk you through it. I mean, the thud, man, freshman year, a couple seniors and coach disappeared. Said, we'll be back. We're in the pool. They come back. Those big doors clank. Remember how loud those were? Bam! And they walk out, and they're carrying Culligan's jugs in their fingers. And they toss them all in the pool. And that was the thud, the empty water jug, the giant water jug. And when that thud, I'm like, what is going on here? And I quickly realized we were filling them and they were going to empty them over our heads. But nobody tells a freshman that you got to get the whirlpool going or that thing's going to empty very slowly. So I remember having a Culligan's jug over my head and looking to my left, and there's this guy, Scott Brezius, and he is like up to his suit spinning this thing and the water's just flowing out of it. So that was the thud. The pop, man, was that canvas in that pool. When it popped and the crowd went nuts, you got the net's I mean, we had this canvas. It made a noise. It made a loud noise. And
The anti-cage.
Oh yeah. And when it popped and the stands were full, it was just, you felt like you were a pro athlete for like, a couple of times because nobody came to the day games. So it was all about the night game and the pop. And then, the smooth, man, I remember Sloan Broderick hitting a bar down 2-pointer when we had 2-pointers to beat Navy at home in a day game with no one in the stands. But sophomore year, we beat Navy, and we never beat Navy. So I remember that smooth delivery by another Greenwich guy who Retzler knows well, I'm sure. And then the laughs, man, those van rides, it was a long way to drive to all those spots. But we had a lot of good times in those vans. As a freshman, Zeigler, riding wherever they put you in that van, probably not so much fun, but later on, it got fun. And they were great. It's probably fitting that Perm's in the van right now because he can bring us all back. But I remember sitting with Perm and Josh on a van ride, one of the last ones I had. What was your favorite goal you scored over your whole career? We had this whole conversation around it. Still a vivid memory now, and maybe more memorable than the smooth and the pop and the thud. But lots of great memories, man. I miss the game. I miss playing in that pool, which I never really want to admit. But
Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about those goals, for me, the assists, I mean, that's, what I love the most. I mean, I could probably play 50 of them in my head, and I remember the exact plays. I remember throwing them to Alex and Josh and others. There's so many memories that come back. The van ride freshman year for me, Alex, remember flat tire going to Slippery Rock. I mean, that was just like what I mean, it's just
the seniors go get donuts. The freshmen fix the flat.
We changed the tire. Yeah. Hey, get back. Sorry about the audience
No,
here.
it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, all right, guys, stop. But yeah, I mean, more on a serious note, kind of narrowing it down, when it comes back to it, there's really one game that kind of sticks out in my mind that I'll never forget. And ironically enough, it was a game that we lost. But to me, it was a defining moment kind of in my playing career and really in my life. And it was at Eastern in 1998. So I was a sophomore. Josh was a junior. And we were playing Navy for third place at Easterns. And obviously playing Navy, like Alex said, we wanted to beat Navy more than anything. It was few and far between when we did. And, the game started off, it was a tight game, and this was probably my first and last game that ever happened. I got ejected for the entire game. Brendan Beer grabbed my foot, pulled it towards his face, and the ref thought I kicked him. So he rolls me. I'm out for the entire game, and Mike Wooster just, oh my gosh, he flips out. So then within seconds, Wooster's out of the entire complex. I'm out of the game. It's, we're just struggling here. It's our last game of the season. We're playing for third place. And I'm just like freaking out, like what happens here? So so I basically step up as coach. So that was my one time, Zeigler was coach. He coached me. That was my one coaching experience at Bucknell, during that game. So the game goes on. It comes halftime, and it's still a tight game. And all I can remember is I didn't know what to tell the team. I didn't know how to get them riled up. So I had learned growing up this speech called Daring Greatly. And Josh, I don't know if you remember it or not, but, I was like, this is the time. This is what I need to tell these guys. So I didn't have any strategy, anything. I just started telling this speech. It's not the critic that counts. It's not the one that points out how the strong man stumbled or where the doer deeds could have done them better. I mean, I still remember it to this day. And that's just what I thought to motivate these guys. And it was amazing. I mean, every single person played valuable minutes. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It was such an amazing experience. I mean, really for that point, it was the first time I realized why my teammates had voted me to be team captain. It wasn't because of what I was doing in the pool for them that day. It was how I led them from the deck. And I never saw them try harder. They really played for each other. Everyone played their heart out. The game ended up being close. I think we ended up losing by one or so. But, from that day on, I was couldn't have been more proud for everyone. Really that day we didn't have the most goals, but I think we all walked away as winners just for the effort we gave. And so that's definitely by far my most amazing experience. It still haunts me to the day that we lost, but so grateful that I had the chance to kind of lead my team and in a different way than just in the pool.
Awesome. Moving on, who was the teammate you admired the most throughout your career here, and why? Chris.
Well, it's interesting that you ask, because that individual is on this Zoom with us right now, and it was John Zeigler. It's really no surprise to me that John went on to become a coach, because I think he was a phenomenal captain for both his junior and senior year. And he was a junior when I was a freshman, and it was his apartment that was the first place we went to outside of our dorms. And it was incredibly welcoming. I mean, John was, very welcoming to any class, any student on the team. And he just made you feel like you were part of a family, a part of something bigger than yourself. And that you had importance to that team. John mentioned earlier, you got through preseason and we all took it incredibly seriously. And you knew you accomplished something after those first couple weeks or few weeks that you were in the pool. But, I think John was always someone who the players on our team looked to. Like if we were down, he was up. He was motivating you. He was keeping your head in the game. He wasn't going to let you give up. Again, I think that's why it was no shock to me that he came back to be a coach for a few years. And when I heard he was coming back to work at Bucknell in the alumni relations area, I was like, you couldn't pick a better person who I think is in the web of the network of so many people. I always think of it as kind of plus 4 years or minus 4 years around your time there, because that was the network that you got to build as you passed through your 4 years on campus. And, I think that John did a phenomenal job, maintaining his reputation and who he was amongst all those people. And we look to him for leadership. So that's why I picked Mr. Zeigler.
He's a tough coach for me to live up to every day. So it makes my job difficult. But Josh.
I could probably think of a bunch of people, but the people that stick out in my mind the most, again, one of them is on this call, Alex Lunding. Alex was, we both played whole set And so he was, when I came in as a freshman, he was the starting hole set. And so I looked to him for the example on how to really be and how to navigate the collegiate water polo experience. And, he likes to talk about my arm span, my wingspan, but I mean, he's a pretty big guy himself. And where I was more of a sort of skinny, lanky guy, Alex had muscle and strength, and he was sort of that prototypical player that I aspired to be, and really to dominate, the whole defenders. Alex talks about, maybe he could have done more to really build up his teammates, but I thought he did a pretty good job of that, and definitely in the motivating arena, getting us psyched. And I remember one time I had gotten subbed in. He was taking a break. I got subbed in, and it was kind of like, get in, do what you need to do, score that goal. And I got in and I scored a goal like right away. And he just like looked at me from the bench like, yes. I think we were at like George Washington or Hopkins or something. And it was that motivation that really drove me to excel, I think. And then another member of his class, Brad Wolf, Brad and Alex were definitely different sides of the coin. Alex was a lane 1, lane 2 swimmer, which meant he was a fast swimmer. Me and Brad were a lane 6 swimmer. We were sort of in the slower category. And whereas Alex showed me kind of the player to aspire to, Brad showed me a different type of player that could kind of go out there and just have fun no matter what. And he might not have been the best player in the pool, but he was strong. He tried, put all of it into his heart and into his playing, and he just had a good time doing it. And so I was able to take a little bit of both from the two individuals.
Great. Ziggy.
Well, thank you, Chris, first of all, for those kind words, and John as well. I appreciate that a lot, more than you can imagine. But for me, it is Garen Kopecky, who was kind of very timely, actually, because he just came in fairly recently to Bucknell's Hall of Fame. The Collegiate Water Polo Hall of Fame. And, for me, he's like someone who I always looked up to. He's a couple of years older than me. Just a phenomenal player, but it wasn't really about his play, because he just kind of did it day in, day out. You always kind of expected him to. But it was just more of the little things with him. He was kind of a quiet leader, but yet a leader. He always had like a good attitude about everything, and kind of talking people up and kind of making you feel like you could do this, try it this way. But he was always kind of quietly coaching people in the water. But I think mostly because I think for a lot of his last 2 years, a couple things were at play. One, he didn't have classmates right with him or directly around him that really were at that same level. So he was looked to do a lot on the team. And he never really ever complained about that. He was always just kind of that humble guy, just kind of getting it done every day when he had to. Also, he was injured. Like, he was seriously injured for like the better part of his junior and senior year, but yet just kept at it, and just put up incredible numbers because he had to. If he wasn't in there doing it, we weren't going to get it done. So he just was admirable that way, and just went on to continue to do great things in water polo and otherwise, and continue to be very close to the program after. And then when I was coaching, was always someone I could look to, for support in any number of ways with the program. So always admired him, always have, always will. So I just impressive Bucknellian water polo.
Yeah. Also a lefty like yourself. So
bingo. There you go.
There you go. You gotta stick together. Alex.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize, but I also am leaning lefty on this. Although I was ambidextrous, so I could have gone either way. Just to be clear, and my sort of remembrance here and an admired teammate is both a remembrance and an admiration point, because we lost Tim Nesvig in the Bucknell water polo community, and it still hurts, man. Because Tim was, so first of all, I was a Greenwich kid, and you watch the people in front of you where they go in the aquatics community. I joke about Connecticut Polo, but we have a little Fairfield County thing going with a decent, youth program and swim programs in the summer. And so the players and you start to learn who they are, your elders. And Tim was one of those guys for me when I was young. And so I started watching him as a role model as young as, 7 years old. First time I picked up a polo ball, I had his play in my head. And then for our careers to come together from a aquatic standpoint at Bucknell for the 2 years they did, and to watch him play and how he carried himself in the water and outside of it, I wish I'd had more years, because Tim was such an athlete, man. He was so fast, and he had a cannon of an arm, and he just owned the whole position. But he did it with just such ease. I mean, he'd bust off stuff in practice and sets, and he just didn't look like it was hard for him. He would, rip off this ridiculous sweep shot or pop a backhand into that corner, that shot.
Yeah.
Just, he'd make a move and you didn't see his elbow getting thrown, but it was. And the whole defender would pop back, and he'd be like 6 feet away from the dude, just like stepping up. And he was such a specimen, man. And then as a person, he was just kind and humorous and quiet, but such a leader. And in that van ride, man, the thing that makes me the saddest when I think about Tim is the laughter, because Brian Sullivan would get Tim going in that little van in the dark in the middle of Pennsylvania when you're tired of being in that van anymore. And Tim's laugh, man, was just so contagious. And it was the moment where like all that unbridled excellence in him and quiet leadership would just get uncorked. And it was beautiful, man. Just as beautiful as who he was when he lived and who he was in the pool. So Tim is my admired teammate, Tim Nesvig.
Yeah. Often remembered here every year for sure. And hell of an athlete, hell of a person as well. Kevin.
Yeah, that's pretty tough to follow there, Alex. Which is, you tell it so well, and just hearing in your voice, the amount you care, and wasn't just your admiration of him, but whether you learned it from him or you learned it from others, but with the impact you had on Josh as well as with myself, I mean, that makes it's why you were the guy that I had selected also. So really coming in as a freshman and with the great tradition at Bucknell and to earn a start spot on the team as a freshman, I think that was pretty difficult, and I didn't always feel comfortable. I didn't always feel like maybe the upperclassmen liked that, that this freshman came in and maybe took their spot. And you always made me feel welcome, feel like I was part of the team, and that I shouldn't be worried about that kind of stuff, and that, keep it in the pool kind of thing. And that meant so much to me. And just even going through, looking at the effort that you put in on every practice. And I mean, the last game of your senior year at Easterns, I'll never forget. I don't remember what the illness was that you got, but you worked so hard about it, and you couldn't talk for weeks, I think, and your body just kind of broke down, and because you invested so much into the team and you gave so much, and that was so admirable. And I certainly owe a lot of who I am with having you as a mentor and a leader. Unfortunately, it was only for 1 year when I was at Bucknell, but nice. I certainly appreciate that. And then just like Josh as well, I definitely admire, Brad was on my list, Brad, the Halsey Otto, Jake Woodrow, I mean, Alex Bozic. I mean, these guys, they came every single day. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of guys on our team that didn't last for 4 years. But these guys did, they stuck it out. They lasted for 4 years. They weren't, always going to see the playing time, but when their number was called,
We lost you again, Kevin. There you go.
Sorry about that. Oh, this is the worst. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. But really it was kind of our bench guys. I mean, when they got in, they knew that their presence in the water was important, and I give a lot of credit to those guys that came in every day and just worked their tails off. And they never quit. They never complained, and they never quit. So that definitely a lot of admiration to go around.
All right, great. We have one more question. We're going to try and fit it in here. What advice would you give me as the current head coach of the program? Chris?
I would tell you that you got to play the long game, build relationships for the long term. You have an enormous amount of players and alumni. There's a lot of history in this program, and protect the brand of Bucknell and Bucknell water polo. And, years come and go, but I think you really want to look long term and keep it going for a lot of all the good things that I think we've all spoken about here tonight.
Yeah, I'm trying. I try and coach and work every day, remembering all the people that came before and kind of laid the foundation for how great Bucknell is. And you guys put Bucknell on the map for sure. It's much easier going to California or going to Chicago or Connecticut or wherever, and it's very easy to talk about Bucknell, and that's certainly because of you guys. So it has made my job a lot easier. So Josh?
I would say don't be afraid to give second chances to players that make mistakes. You're dealing with college kids here, and I made a mistake my very first probably month of being on the team. And it potentially could have jeopardized my entire polo career, and it could have devastated me and totally changed the trajectory of my life. And Coach Wooster, I was thankful, gave me a second chance. And some of the other players that were in the same boat gave us a second chance, and we played for 4 years. I take ownership of the mistakes that I make, and I think that as long as the players do that and take ownership of their mistakes and show contrition, and don't be afraid to give them second chances, because I think a lot of them, this is what they're there for. I came to Bucknell specifically for water polo, and had Bucknell not had water polo, I probably wouldn't have gone to Bucknell. And so that would be my one piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, sports certainly teaches accountability, right? So when you make bad decisions in the water, everyone gets to see it. So, it's all part of a learning process, because you're going to make bad decisions in life all the time. So as long as you learn from them, and that's what college is really about, right? Making bad decisions so you can learn how to make good decisions. So it's one thing we definitely aspire to do on a daily basis. So yeah, I appreciate it. Ziggy.
Yes, I've had the benefit of kind of being geographically close by for the years of B's tenure here, and I've really been impressed with the culture you've built on this team, John. I think you have these kids where they are accountable for kind of where they fit in the program and how they relate with the others on the team, and they don't tolerate things that are going to be a distraction, And I think that's really important, because that culture just seems to be continuing on and on. I think that I credit you for that. I think the challenge when you're a coach that has been doing this a number of years is that passion. Keep that passion for it, because the players will seize on that passion. If you don't have it, they're going to catch that and they'll feel it. If you have that passion, you're showing it. Even in the hardest times, they'll respond to it. So that would be my advice.
Thanks, Alex.
Sorry, a little bit of a venue change here. I got to be quiet for some young kids. So, yeah, I guess, for me, man, I wish we could have played to condition. You've got that pool behind Todd in his picture, so maybe you can do that more. But I wanted more touches. I wanted the hand in my ball, in that ball in my hand more and more touches. And you got that beautiful facility, and I imagine you do this, but we just had to swim. And for me, like, I would have been better, we would have been better if we had had more touches. And that doesn't mean scrimmaging all day, but it does mean, like, play to condition. Don't swim to condition. So that's maybe the new pool is just a whole new world, and I'm in my 1990s world, but that's on my mind. The other thing you can do for me is you can beat Harvard, please. I have a guy I went to high school with, and I mentioned way earlier that I swim still, and he's in a little virtual chat with me, so we compare workouts. And anytime you're playing Harvard, I hear about it, regular season or, unfortunately, in elimination games for NCAA championship berths. So can we just beat Harvard every time? That would be great. So that's advice, very specific. And the last thing is kind of right there next to what I was speaking about earlier, which is I just hope you can create a culture on the team where everyone is lifting one another up. And it's about getting the team to be its best, but that's about literally just an infectious culture where everyone is looking to elevate each other. And the most polo we're going to play is with each other on the team, not against other teams. So we're going to grow and develop and practice and lifting one another up. And that culture is a part of what made my teams successful at Bucknell, any team I've been on since. And I hope it can be, you know, a part of your culture there. This is probably my last moment to be on the mic. So I just wanted to share this because there's Kevin and there's Josh and I'm down here somewhere. And that's Brad Wolf. He was mentioned as an admired guy. So there you go. Little old school photo for you there. That's from our California trip, my senior year. It's a good trip. Good trip.
Well, Alex, you'd be happy to know that we're not a swim team that plays water polo. We probably swim for 15 minutes before practice and then don't swim again. So all touch the balls.
We don't want to talk about this 400 set we used to do where every single player on the team had to be under a certain mark or we just kept doing 400s.
No.
And like the 30th guy would like cruise in and miss the mark by a second. So you had to do another one.
Probably.
It might have been Josh. I'm just not, just maybe.
Swimming is now a punishment for not doing well with water polo. So I don't know if this offends anybody, but I hate swimming. And I hate watching swimming. So the more water polo we can do, the better. So if you were a swimmer originally, I'm sorry, I apologize. But I just sitting there and watching the swim coach down on the other end of the deck for 2 hours, and he's just standing there with a stopwatch. It's like my version of hell. So I try and avoid that as much as possible. So you're on mute, Alex.
Well, ignore that advice and just beat Harvard then, okay?
We do consistently, so you can
keep it going.
Get on that guy all the time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean that's partly why he was the guy I talked about recently, because I share a lot of the same sentiments there. It's all about the team for me, you know. Anything you can do to engage the entire team, to get them vested into working with each other, and create that family atmosphere, that culture. It's so important. I would say to try to realize the potential in everyone. You know, sometimes we look, oh, here comes some guy that he's got some talent, you know, he's going to become even better. But that might not necessarily always be the case. It might be that person that's just that hard worker. And if you really invest time into them, they've got just as much potential as someone else. But to figure out what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, and put them in a position to succeed. So it's definitely giving them that opportunity to succeed, but also put them in a position that allows them to fail also. You know, you're never going to know what someone's truly capable of until you allow them to fail as well. And I think that could be really valuable there. With some players, you know, they're coming from these schools and they're a hot shot, and all of a sudden that they come to a college program and they're just, you know, one of the others. You know, their expectations might not always be in line with what yours are, but they might not know that, you know. So I'd say as a coach, whatever you can do to define their expectations, let them know what their responsibility is, how they can be a part of that team. to basically follow you and, as that leader, to get them to those victories,
Yeah, no, awesome. No, I appreciate it. It's an ongoing process, Kevin. You're always working hard to not do exactly that, so it's a year-to-year thing. Every team every year is a different team, and you have to figure it's a new team, right? You welcome new freshmen in, the whole team changes, and now so the culture is constantly evolving from year to year. And some guys that were studs in high school and big fish small pond kind of thing, from a state where they were the man, and then they show up in Division I college and everyone is 6 feet tall and 225 pounds and can swim a 44 in the 100 freestyle. All of a sudden you're not such the big guy anymore. So there's that adjustment as well,
Oh yeah.
Especially for the guys that were centers, big centers in high school, and then they show up, there's a 6'8" Hungarian that's guarding them, and it wasn't the little 5'7" in club that was guarding them for 4 years that let them dominate, and them having to work through that. And just so it is an every year process of developing a new culture for each team, because every team changes, and the success from the last year doesn't matter going forward for the success of that team. So just a different look every year. But I agree with you 100%. And like I said, it's just an ongoing thing. So I'm working on it. It never ends.
It looks like you're doing a good job. So
well, we're trying. It's not me, it's the athletes. So I just bring them to campus and they have to do all the hard work, right? I get to drink the coffee and blow the whistle, but they have to put in the yards and the egg beatering. But you'll be happy to know, well, maybe it won't be, but we don't do the water jugs anymore, so there is no more thump or
Good.
Yeah, that's kind of gone away. So
Matt, you should give it a shot. I'm sure Culligan is still in business. Just get him to give you an empty jug and see if you can empty it.
I think it might have gotten worse, to be honest, with some of the sets we do.
All right, good.
I enjoyed it, though. I missed Hell Week this last year.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, Matt is definitely the guy that would hold that jug with his waist out of the water. I mean, he's got legs that are he's a freak of nature. So
give him two.
He's got to keep his head out of the way of these elbows and knees, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Todd. Sorry.
All right, well, guys, what a great session, and I'm going to end it with one small story that relates directly to Coach McBride's version of swimming during water polo, and he said it was for punishment, and I can definitely attest to that. I'm at Walmart here in Lewisburg one night, and I hear this guy making this ruckus coming around the aisle, and he's driving the little cart that you can't walk, and it's Rade Joksimovic, who just graduated and was one of the best players we ever had, and he's got 2 ice bags taped to his knees. And I said, Rade, what are you doing? He said, I am in so much pain. Coach made us swim 8 miles at practice because someone didn't get their paperwork in on time. So he does use it as punishment. He keeps them in shape.
Good.
Anyway, so Matt, I want to turn my attention to you first. Thanks a lot for being on the call tonight. Wish you the best of luck with the rest of your semester. Stay safe and healthy. And we're really keeping our fingers crossed that come springtime, you guys are in Kinney Natatorium playing competitive games. And you know that if you are, that these guys and a lot of other alums will be back there to root you on. So good luck with that. And to the alums, what a great session. Coach and I were chatting back and forth as we can do with the Zoom feature. And he asked me, should we just let this go? It's been going so great. And I said, absolutely. I know we went over the hour, but the conversation was great. You guys all had tremendous things to say. I think, Matt, this is one that you got to take back to your teammates and really share with those guys. There was a lot of great advice from these guys on this call. And finally, guys, thank you for what you've done for Bucknell, not just when you were in the pool here, swimming and playing polo and what you did there competitively, but what you've done outside the pool and what you've continued to do for Bucknell. And one selfish comment that I'm going to make, John Zeigler, I've been at Bucknell for 21 years, and the best years I had was when I worked with you and that program as a sports supervisor for the polo program. Just a testament to the student athletes that you brought into the program, the type of guys that we have in the men's water polo program here at Bucknell. And it's you all, but a few years younger than what you guys are now. So Again, thank you guys for making the time tonight. And for those people at home that tuned in to watch, thank you for doing that. And go Bison.